Welcome to episode number 14 of the Riverfront Bengals show, where we come to you every Thursday to discuss the week that was and the days to come in Cincinnati Bengals Nation, often in very nonsensical ways. We are the very show that was recently honored as the second most dangerous podcast in the entire kingdom of Lesotho. We are your hosts, Nate Dawson and Joe Farsing. Joe, how the hell are you, sir?
Now that you're back, I'm doing wonderful, man. We missed you last week, and don't leave me with those old guys again.
You stop it. I mean, it was tough, and I hated to do it to you. My future marriage depended on it, unfortunately. But thank you for holding it down. Thanks to Chad and Chris. I enjoyed listening to it, but was a little bit jealous. I missed you. I missed your musk. Speaking of our musk, we're going to dive into our feels after an immensely satisfying win over the Tennessee Titans, a 20-16 win. But before we get too far down that rabbit hole, if you don't mind, heck, even if you do mind, go give us a like, follow, subscribe, wherever you consume this podcast. And we are available everywhere. I heard that we are actually available on iHeartRadio, which I am not convinced is a real thing. Those likes help us reach more people. And without your help, I just don't know how we're ever going to take over that number one spot in Lesotho.
Garber said we're available on vinyl too. I'm not sure who's pressing them week after week, but I mean, I can go find some vinyl store and see if they have them.
I have heard that your dulcet tones sound even better on vinyl, so this is good news for everybody.
Awesome.
All right, so let's jump in, Joe. Bengals extended their win streak to 3 this week with a 20-16 win over Mike Vrabel's Tennessee Titans. Nearly as important, the stupid Baltimore Ravens, in impressive fashion, allowed the Jaguars to come out of left field and beat them by means of 2-point conversion. That leaves Cincy and Baltimore tied atop the AFC North at 7-4. And man, like that final score, 2016, can go pound sand. That was a satisfying win. How are you feeling about it? What are some of your takeaways?
It kind of proves that the Bengals can play any which way that the other team kind of forces them to play.
That's right.
Titans were the definitive old school AFC North football, the old school Steelers and Browns and pound them on the ground and tough defense. Bengals took it right to them. Derrick Henry was the biggest, baddest running back in the league, and they totally just minimized his contributions. It was fantastic to see. The offense just played smart. They didn't really risk too much more than they had to. It was kind of more, I don't want to say vanilla game plan, but you've seen them bring out all the stops, full run heavy offense against the Panthers or full spread against everybody. And they mixed and matched, but they didn't have to sell out because they were getting enough. They were efficient. The game plan was just fantastic on both ends. Lou Anarumo proves week after week that I don't know if he's ever going to get the chance because he's older, but he deserves to be a head coach somewhere. I mean, that guy just pulls magic out of his ass week after week. So
I heard, I was listening to a national podcast today, literally for the first time on any football podcast I listened to. They spent about 15 minutes, about 10 minutes talking about Lou Anarumo on there and how incredible of a job in his stats in second halves. How there's nobody in the game better at making in-game adjustments than Lou Anarumo. And man, it was obvious. It's obvious just about every week, but it's nice that the rest of the country is catching on to it. We've known all along, but you said it right. They played smart. They didn't take any unnecessary risk. It almost seemed like they were holding back because they knew they could get a big play when they needed to. Like they were just letting the game sort of come to them because they never felt terribly in danger. I don't know. That's what I got from watching it.
It wasn't until the third and the fourth quarter when they started pushing the ball downfield. He was taking what was underneath. I mean, he's finding guys. Again, they only had 10 points at halftime. They had to punt a few times, but it's kind of what they do on defense, just feeling out, seeing what the defense is going to give them. And then, in the second half, once they know what the other team's going to do, that's when, you take your shots and you're a lot more aggressive. That being said, from play one, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, Samaje Perine just on a dump-off pass. I don't think it was really a screen, but he just absolutely took the life away from Cincinnati native David Long on the just stiff arm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he stiff armed.
If you're watching on YouTube, we threw a picture up there of him just taking his lunch money. It was amazing.
David Long's a damn good linebacker too, and he was completely vertical off the ground. I mean, it was like he was levitating. He bounced off the ground. It wasn't just they fall over. It was thud, and then he was on a trampoline. first play of the game for that team. That's a statement.
Yeah, he wasn't the only only guy that played big either. T was looking good. We'll definitely talk some more about him. But I keep saying that it was a gratifying win, but gosh, I think I enjoyed this win more than any win so far this season because they went to Nashville and they were playing the team that punches everyone in the mouth. Like, people were sleeping on Tennessee going into this season. Like, oh, are they for real? And then week 6, 7 rolls around, and people realize, oh, not only are they for real, but they're well coached, and they beat you up. They drag you through the mud, and they make you regret ever coming to Tennessee. The Bengals showed up and gave them a taste of their own medicine. They went Mike Tyson on Mike Tyson. It was fun to see, and there's been a lot of wins that, looking back on it this season, you could say there's an asterisk or a caveat, and I want to talk a little more about that later. But this was not one of those games. It was on the road, a playoff caliber team, probably a division winner, something close to it, and they beat them up.
Yeah, they're gonna walk away with the AFC South. It's just a terrible division, and part of that is kind of like they wanted to come out and prove that they're not. I don't want to say they want to prove they weren't frauds, but they want to prove that they're for real, because it's easy to beat up when you're playing the Colts, the Texans, and the Jaguars two times a week. They haven't really beaten anybody of any significance outside of the Giants early in the season, and Bengals did pretty much force their will on them. The offensive line allowed 1 sack total. And that's the team that absolutely pounded Burrow to 9 sacks last season in the playoffs. So again, you're seeing how the offensive line is gelling, and they're not great. They're now in PFF. They're now ranked as the 16th overall, which middle of the pack. Awesome. You got a middle of the pack offensive line with the playmakers that you have in the defense. You're golden. You can roll with that.
Yeah, I think that underscores a little bit. I mean, they had to be ranked dead last after week 3. I don't specifically remember, but they had to be, the 2 or 3 worst lines in the league. So them being 16th now is that means they're playing like a top 10 unit.
Yeah.
And then you got to give a shout out to Jonah Williams. He's taken his licks on here a few times in recent weeks, but 4th highest rated player on offense. That was fun to see. And it was a 2016 score. Tennessee missed a field goal going into the half, but for some reason it never even felt that close. Like, I never felt worried this whole game, which is not something I don't think I can say about any game this season except for the Panthers. Like, I felt worried at various times in every game each week, except for even the bye week got me nervous. But just could not be happier. I enjoyed going back and rewatching some of the highlights and stuff to get ready for this. It was satisfying.
Well, and one thing one thing to touch on Jonah again. I mean, he was playing hurt early. He dislocated his kneecap earlier in the year, and his best two game stretch have been the last 2 weeks coming out of the bye. So you're wondering, is he now just healthy? And that's why he was struggling so bad. He's been up and down, but he's coming into the season, he was viewed as a decent, at least middle of the road left tackle, and obviously he was awful for most of it. And he's still one of the more poorly rated tackles in the league, but he's played a lot better since he's had that extra week with the bye week. So you wonder if that's kind of what we're going to be getting down the stretch. And given the gauntlet that they still have the next 6 weeks, if you can get this Jonah Williams, then you're going to have a hell of a lot better luck.
That's exactly right. And as well as the offense played, even though, like we said, only put up 20 points, it still just felt like they were in control. They get a guy back next week who, spoiler alerts, you may have heard of him. Let's just say that. We'll touch on it later. But there's some important pieces coming back next week. What'd you see on the defense? I know we talked about Lou, but what were some of your big takeaways?
At least in the run game, it is the best team defense I've ever seen a Cincinnati Bengals team play. I believe it was all 11 starters had a tackle on Derrick Henry at one point or another. Cam Taylor-Britt coming up, making plays in the hole. Mike Hilton had 3 plays coming up, tackling him at or behind the line of scrimmage. Mike Hilton's 180 pounds. He's listed at 180 pounds. I'd be surprised if he's more than 175 pounds. Derrick Henry's 240. He took him down by himself 3 times. You hear him in the interview, and he made sure they said, no, I tackled him. I didn't trip him up. I tackled him. It was when someone mentioned that they tripped him up in the hole. Everybody, I mean, even if it wasn't the first guy, Hubbard come in, made a couple plays and just redirected him, missed the tackle, but the next guy cleaned him up behind the line of scrimmage. 17 carries for 38 yards, 2.2 yards a carry. His longest run was 9. Yeah, his longest run was 9, his first carry of the game, which means he had 29 yards on 16 carries after the first play of the game.
Yeah. It was so much fun. It was almost like they game plan for obviously no arm tackling. Like he's gonna break your arms if you try that crap. You're gonna have to hit him and hit him hard, because that was it was just fun. It's like the defense woke up and chose violence. They were flying around the field, just poleaxing dudes left and right.
Yeah.
Mike Hilton was laying the wood, who had a 90.4 run defense grade.
Yeah.
Cam Taylor-Britt was just crushing dudes. He had a really solid game. I think he's trending in the right direction a little bit.
Absolutely.
And they had 10 guys grade out at 70 or above against the run. Like that, you practice for it all week. You're watching ESPN. You're listening to the media. All you hear all week is Derrick Henry. These guys are going to run the ball down your throat. Everybody tries to load the box and stop them. Nobody can. Well, not only did they ran over them with the steamroller. It was brutal, and Tennessee came out of that game feeling like, oh hell, we played Cincinnati, not the other way around. It was pretty freaking cool.
Well, that's the thing that, and if you heard the post game when the post game speech that Zach Taylor was given when he's giving away game balls, he said, "What do we tell you guys about last night?" It's like, not that they have this gauntlet to play; those teams have to play us.
Yeah,
that the Bengals are the team that these guys down the stretch need to worry about, not that they've got to worry about this gauntlet coming up ahead of them. And that's the way they got to look at it. They're no longer what was Burrow's thing last year in the playoffs. He hated being the why not us shit. It's no, we're the big dogs. What was that last week after Pittsburgh? He yelled the let's the LFG, let's freaking go, and then we're the big dogs when he's on the sideline after a touchdown pass in Pittsburgh. They believe they're the big dogs. They want they're ready to take everyone. They want everyone to see them as the big game, not that they've got everything to take care, not that they've got these big games on the schedule. They're the big game on the Chiefs schedule, on the on the Patriots schedule, on the Buccaneers schedule, on the Bills schedule. So and they're taking it to heart. I mean, they're being the aggressor. They're not waiting to counterpunch. They're coming out. Yeah. They're going to punch you in the face. What are you going to do about it?
Go down the schedule and look at these teams and think, I wonder how many of these actually consider this a rivalry. Not Steelers-Ravens, but like some level of a rivalry. And every AFC North team is going to have a bone to pick. Tennessee, Kansas City, all these teams have a reason to get extra amped up. And, we do a lot of schedule watching, and I do want to talk about this a little bit more later, but it's the mindset you have to have. You don't want to look at like, look at all these playoff teams, because one, some of them are playoff teams, but they don't necessarily look like it. Two, the Bengals are a really, really good team. They're playing at their best at the right time. And that's part of the magic. That's part of the secret sauce, is you have to kind of have a little luck, have a little good timing. And you spend all week preparing for one game, one team. So they're not looking at it as, look at all these playoff teams we have in our remaining schedule. They're like, all right, we got 7 days or 6 days and then one to play against the Chiefs. And then that one's over, and we got however many days until the Browns. So it's a fun time to be a Bengals fan. It's a fun week to watch them. And, that defense, DJ Reader, just
he's a freak. I mean, how many double teams? There was a lot of the national pundits that are just breaking the film down on Monday and Tuesday. They just kept highlighting his play, that he's taking on two linemen. There was one play he took on the center and the left guard, pushed them both into Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry couldn't even bounce it. That next guy behind, I think it was either Pratt or linebacker filling in behind, got him for a loss because Reader plugged the hole himself just by taking on two blockers. The guy's just so big and so strong, and they missed that when he was gone. He's back, and he's back and kicking ass. And
it seemed like it took him a week, to get back into the rhythm of things. That Pittsburgh game wasn't his best, but that's to be expected. He looked like a all pro on Sunday for sure.
Oh, definitely.
While we're talking about good players, I got a young lady that wants to say something to you.
Tell me about it, stud.
I did not appreciate the slander y'all gave me on last week's episode. Olivia Newton-John, R.I.P. You're missed. Joe, who's your Olivia Newton-John honorary stud of the week?
Cam Taylor-Britt. He has been kind of thrust in. We kind of talked a lot about him in the past couple weeks. He struggled. He struggled mightily last week in coverage. This week he was everywhere. He actually had a better grade in coverage, 78.7, than he had covering the run, and he was making plays in the run. He's a big physical corner. He's going to hit you. He loves to tackle, and his coverage ability has been showing up, has been getting better and better, notwithstanding last week against Pickens when they kind of just let him run free for whatever reason. If he can continue this ascent through the rest of the season, then they're looking pretty good. But he's going to be challenged this week. But he definitely was a big surprise. Huge hustle on the one play. Derrick Henry gets the screen pass, goes all the way, busts down the middle of the field. He comes from behind, knocks it away from him at the 6, and unfortunately, Treylon Burks picked it up for a touchdown. But I mean, that's just a huge hustle play. Didn't give up. That's a play that a lot of other guys would just hell that he's passed, he's gone. No one's going to tackle him from behind. But
yeah, you love to see that. He had 8 tackles in the game on top of that forced fumble. He's been improving every week, almost literally every week in coverage. I think he had one consecutive week span where he went from like a 48 to a 46 grade. So we won't count that. Other than that, he's just been getting better. And George Pickens is going to be a stud. I'm not excited that the Bengals are going to have to deal with him for several years. Hopefully he leaves Pittsburgh in free agency. Like those matchups, and even holding your own, that says a lot. And yeah, he's going to have a big test coming up.
And he still had a decent grade last week in coverage. Even I don't know how much they got counted against him, the overthrow and the drop, but I mean, he still had a 64.8 grade, which isn't terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can expect too much more out of a rookie like that. No. I don't want to spend too long on this next one, but I can't get through the week without playing the clip. So here we go.
Yes! Randy Watson!
That boy is good.
Mm-hmm. Good and terrible.
I can't get it up of it. Randy Watson have to pick one dud this week. We almost nixed this category altogether, but I'm going to throw out our boy Jesse Bates, and I'm just picking some nits here, Joe, because he was great against the run. He was awesome. He had an elite tackling day, I think 80+, but he really, really struggled in coverage, and I just think that it warrants a mention with who coming to town next week. Do better, please. The point of the duds category is not to point out poor play. It is to inspire these guys to rise above and get out of the duds list. So take it that way, Jesse. See what you got on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who's known for his coverage ability. He's been pretty middling to kind of poor this whole season in coverage. This is the week that that they need to pick it up. He played great against them both times last year, especially in the playoffs. But can't have any lapses, can't slip down. They don't have any huge weapons like Tyreek, and we'll get into this later, but they've got plenty of guys who can make plays. So
yeah, that's right. Somebody needs to just tweet at Jesse Bates, whatever his name is, on the Twitters, and let him know that Randy Watson has put him on notice. And if that doesn't inspire him, then I understand why the Bengals didn't sign him to a long-term deal.
We've seen several guys that have heard that they were the dud of the week and bounced back. I mean, Cam Taylor-Britt was the dud of the week. Jonah Williams has been the dud of the week, and they've jumped, and they've bounced back. So it works. We need it to work this week. There's
a method to the madness, as long as we keep telling ourselves that. Let's go with the bold strategy cotton. Interesting call of the week.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
What'd you find this week, Joe?
Yeah, so this was kind of weird. Every third down that the Titans faced, they passed. Not one. I mean, they've got the biggest, baddest running back in the game, and it's not like the Bengals played well on early downs, but it's not like there was always 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. There were a couple 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 2s, and they didn't hand the ball off to him once. Tannehill scrambled for one. The rest of the time, they threw every down, and it's just the weirdest damn thing. I saw someone say something on social media I'm like, that can't be right. And no, I went back to the drive log in every single third down.
Mm-hmm.
Went back to pass, watching the all 22. Went back to pass. I'm like, did Bengals scare you out of your game plan? I'm not complaining. I mean, I'd much rather Tannehill throw than Henry keep running, but
yeah, I mean, you put this in the notes. I didn't believe you at first. I wasn't going to fact check you because I want to be a good co-host. I feel like that's the wrong move. We're all about feelings and no facts on this podcast. Yeah. But the scramble thing doesn't really surprise me much. Tannehill's a good runner, but he had an ankle or something was bothering him. But I guess, hell, man, if you can't do anything on the ground, you're only getting 2.2. I mean, if that's third 2.5, you haven't been getting it. So it was weird, though. It was definitely a bold strategy, and one could argue that it did not work out for them.
Did not.
All right, let's move on to some awards for the week. Joe, you are going to bat lead off, so here's the clip.
Damn!
Nailed it again.
We alluded to it earlier. Samaje Perine on the very first snap of the game bounces Cincinnati's own hometown boy, David Long, off of the turf. Just vicious, soul-snatching stiff arm. Kyle Brandt had it as the angry run of the week. Keep popping it up there. I love it. Just beautiful. So again, he bounced off of the turf. I mean, it was like they were playing on a trampoline. Just set the tone for the day that this is, the Bengals woke up, they chose violence, and you need to respond to them. They're ready.
Yeah, you have to think that it had some sort of impact. You guys you got your opening play jitters, the game's getting going, you're on the road, crowd's going nuts. Man, those fans wanted that win. And then for Perine, the backup, to come on the first play of the game and just take that dude's lunch money was so much fun. So for my award, I'm not going to play a clip because I don't know if it's a copyright infringement. I don't know if you knew this, but they're pretty strict on copyrights on Lesotho. So I don't want to risk our number 2 podcast standing over there. But I'm going to give out the Hamilton, the musical Aaron Burr / Leslie Odom Jr. inspired Wait For It award to T. Higgins. I have spent no shortage of time on this podcast claiming that T is a legit number 1 wide receiver. I think we all believe that is true. But I just couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't seeing it regularly enough. So I went to the stat sheets, and sure enough, through the first 7 weeks, T was averaging 4.8 catches per game on 72 yards per game. But much like Leslie Odom Jr. says in the absurdly catchy tune "Wait For It" in the Broadway smash hit Hamilton, T wasn't standing still, Joe. He was lying in wait. Since week 7, he's had his 3 highest reception total games, 7, 9, and 7 in those respectively. He's averaging 117 yards. He's got a touchdown in that span, and he has had several high-impact, clutch, game-changing plays. So all I got to say to that is with his running mate, Jamar Chase, coming back and T playing at a high level, we haven't seen the ceiling for this offense yet, and I am here for it, baby.
2 questions. Would Justin Reid be the Alexander Hamilton in this Aaron Burr analogy? Ooh. And number 2, is T. Higgins going to be tried for treason? Is he going to try to overthrow I hope not. T's mom seems like a wonderful lady. She, if you see her on the socials, you can tell that that she's raised a good boy. You hope, you wouldn't think so, but I just want to make sure that we're drawing a distinction here.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to go apples to apples here. Cool. I don't think T is going to mortally wound any founding fathers either.
He got away with murder. I mean, that's literally tried for murder. He murdered the vice president and got away with it.
As they make it exceedingly clear in the musical, everything is legal in New Jersey.
Fair enough.
You did bring up Chief Safety Justin Reid, so let's just go ahead and jump into that. This came out a little bit before we started recording today. We record on a Wednesday and come to you on Thursday. But Chief's safety, alleged safety, because I've never even heard of this dude, had some interesting comments in an interview. Let's just go ahead and play this clip real quick.
A lot of it's going to come down to making the play on the ball. They have 88 Higbee. No, it's not Higbee was with the Rams. What's his name?
Not Higgins.
It is Higgins.
Yeah,
it's Higgins. Higbee and Higgins.
Yeah.
They're going to have him back. He's a very talented receiver, too. More of a finesse type of guy. Not the best blocker. I'm going to lock him down.
There's a lot to unpack there. Why don't you go ahead and dissect these this inane response for me?
So in one quote, he mixed up Tyler Higbee, who's the tight end for the Los Angeles Chargers or Los Angeles Rams,
right? Right.
T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, because he was talking about coming back. Jamar Chase, the one who's coming back, and Hayden Hurst, who was actually who he was talking about, because number 88, who he'd be covering because he's a safety, is Hayden Hurst. He's not going to lock down any of those guys. He's got I think 114 passer rating against. He's allowing 75% completions on passes thrown his way, in the 50s out of 60 out of all the safeties in coverage grade. He's not locking anybody down. But yeah, it was one of those just absolutely inane ramblings you would expect from a Senate candidate from Georgia. It was one of those like, what the hell are you talking about? Higbee, no, Higgins, he's coming back. And then he went on to say that he's a finesse player. I wish we had the clip pulled up, and I should have sent it to you. Hayden Hurst absolutely laying out Bud Dupree on a block, and that's not a finesse player. If you've ever seen Hayden Hurst with the ball, he's not a finesse player. It takes 4 or 5 guys. He's dragging guys downfield. I don't know how much Hayden Hurst is going to be featured. He gets maybe 3 or 4 passes a game because we've got stud wide receivers all over the place and running backs who can catch. You got to wonder if Burrow might just toss him a couple extra passes just to run his ass over. I mean, this guy's famous because he's Eric Reid's younger brother, not because he's a good football player. He missed last year when Bengals threw for 400, for almost 500 yards on him. Just shut your mouth. I mean, you guys were 0-2 against the Bengals last year. Shut them down, then run your mouth. Okay. Yeah. Like the Bengals don't really need any bulletin board material. And I don't know how much anyone even really gives a rat's ass. Although Jamar did respond on Twitter accordingly, but yeah, just shut your mouth.
That was sort of my feelings. I saw Twitter going nuts about it. I'm like, all right, like I got to check this out. What an idiot. Like I'm sure. I don't know if he was like trying to be inflammatory or if he just didn't know he was truly being genuine. That's even worse. Like you were preparing for these guys all week and you don't know any of the players that you're supposed to could potentially be covering. I don't know. And like I said, I bet the Bengals don't care too much. They're going to laugh it off, have some fun with it, I'm sure. But you have to think that there are guys in his locker room being like, bro,
yeah,
you weren't here when we got beat 2 times last week.
Yeah.
And I think most people will agree that the Chiefs are probably the better team right now, but they don't need any extra motivation, and veterans in the locker room probably don't love that. Either way, it was fun to watch Twitter go nuts about stuff. And as a Reds fan, it's usually something, like a backup shortstop twisting his ankle. So this was fun. But I guess we should go ahead and jump into a little bit of the game preview and where things stand with the AFC North. Like we mentioned before, Cincinnati and Baltimore are tied at 7-4. Baltimore does have that tiebreaker. Cincinnati's division record's pretty gross. Cleveland and Pittsburgh are both 4-7, so like not dead, but barely alive. Like they just got bit by the zombie, but they haven't turned yet. Though I will say, I'm not going to lie, Pittsburgh is playing a little bit better than I thought they were going to. The last 3 weeks, they've actually been clicking in a way they hadn't in the first several weeks. So that'll be interesting to see if Mike Tomlin can find a way to keep his streak alive. I wouldn't bet on it.
They beat the Colts, though. I mean, they beat the Colts and the guy that they pulled off the couch to coach. I mean, it's not like they took out the Chiefs or the Eagles or anybody.
These are facts. This is true. Currently, the Bengals are in the 6th seed for the playoffs, and my favorite fact here is that they control their own destiny. Since they're tied with the Ravens and they have one more against them, all they have to do is finish with a better record. And I think getting that higher seed would be pretty important when it comes to projecting a deep playoff run. I think they would have to go through Kansas City, Buffalo, and maybe Tennessee again.
As of now, they would have to. If the playoffs were to start, they'd turn around or head right back to Nashville.
Yeah. So we know they have a tough schedule. People have been schedule watching, and we've been talking about it for a while. But if you just look ahead, this game on Sunday, 4:25 against the Kansas City Chiefs, and Patrick stinking Mahomes, who I actually don't hate. I just hate his brother.
As you should.
It's not a must-win, but it is definitely a sure would be freaking nice to win. If they do win this one, the league is officially on notice, and I think Baltimore starts really, really sweating. So, what else do we say? The Kansas City opens as 3-point favorites. They are coming to Cincinnati, which is great news. That stadium is going to be insane. Are you going to go to it?
I am not, unfortunately. Yeah, and this is going to be one of the louder games that's been at that stadium. I mean, I know last year's game, just watching on TV was crazy, but last year was kind of it was more. We hope they're going to win. But we were expecting them to, every tense moment, like you could hear the crowd kind of tighten up a little bit. This year, I mean, the team has this confidence, and I think the fans are starting to feed off of the confidence. So it's going to be a lot louder, and it's a hard place for teams to play. I mean, you're going to see a lot of even for an experienced team like the Chiefs. I think you're going to see some communication issues when they get close to the end zones, and false starts to lay games, things like that. So crowd will be lit, as the youngins say.
These are facts, and Cincinnati looks like they are on track to be at full health, minus minus the IR guys. Cheeto will forever be missed and in my heart. Your sample, but DJ Reader questionable, but on track to play. Nothing signaling why he wouldn't. Jamar Chase is practicing. Him and Mixon are both limited. Joe Mixon is going to have to get through concussion protocols, but they're all on track to play. I guess my only question to you about that would be, do you want Joe Mixon back?
Yeah, I mean, the more weapons, the better. And there's a lot of talk, and most of it's it's all just on social media with the fans and everything about whether Perine should replace Mixon as running back one. And I made my feelings on Mixon be known, but he's still the more dynamic back between Perine. Perine is just a sledgehammer that's just – I mean, he's going to find a hole, hit it, and run through it, even on his explosive plays in the – insert sledgehammer, yeah. Even on his on the explosive pass plays, it's one cut, and he's just going straight downfield. Mixon still has the better feet. He's still able to make more moves. I think Perine's earned a few more carries, and Travion Williams, for that matter. Travion Williams looked really, really good. He was actually the highest graded player on offense last week, and he only had a handful of snaps, but he had a 16-yard run, a 20-plus yard catch. He did well in blitz pickup. He did a fantastic job on blitz pickup. But that's just more weapons. There's nothing wrong with having more weapons, more people to give the ball to. I still wholly expect if Mixon is good to go, that he's going to resume running back one. And especially if it's concussion, not that you take those lightly, but this isn't a knee or an ankle or something to where you're worrying about, too much wear and tear. He's going to get, when he's cleared, he's going to be back to his full workload, whatever they decide to give it to him.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Bengals have won the last two against Kansas City, including last year's AFC title game. We know that both teams are going to be getting hyped up, but Kansas City's offense is doing some pretty special stuff right now. So Lou and the D are going to have their work cut out for them. What have you discovered looking into this offense?
It's historically, a lot of these advanced analytics have only been around for the past decade or so, but right now it's trending to be one of the most efficient and explosive offenses in that time span in terms of points per drive, yards per drive, DVOA, and expected points. All of the metrics, they're on top of everything, and that's after trading Tyreek Hill. Patrick Mahomes just makes that engine go. They still have the best tight end in NFL history from the best university out there, University of Cincinnati, Travis Kelce. And then they just have a bunch of weapons. They don't have the superstar receivers, but they have a bunch of really good receivers. They have a bunch of running backs, and he spreads it around. So they're always dangerous when you've got 15 back there. He's the most off schedule plays. I mean, he just pulls shit out of his ass. I mean, some of the weird arm angles he played, that he takes out, rolling way off to the side, or as he, running to the line of scrimmage, you think he's getting ready to tuck it. Nope, he's just going to flip something from behind his back and throw it 50 yards downfield and hit a guy in stride. It's, this is a game that you need Cam Taylor-Britt to keep that ascension. You need Eli Apple to have his good game. And again, you need all members of your secondary, Mike Hilton, to keep playing as well. Everybody has to be up to the task. Lou Anarumo is going to have a great game plan, but it's up to it's up to the individuals whether or not they're going to execute.
Yeah, those are good points. So we haven't talked about it much on this episode, but it could be a big Trey Hendrickson game. If he is able to get some consistent pressure on Patrick Mahomes, and it seems like the entire defensive front kind of struggled with that this season, getting that consistent pressure. That could change things up a lot. Fortunately, the Bengals are no slouches themselves. They're up to 5th in the league in EPA per play and 11th in defensive EPA per play. Looking at the rankings, that seems about right. But with DJ back, I wouldn't be shocked to see that defensive rating climb. So that's always one of my favorite stats to look at, which teams are top 10 in these important, not at all cherry picked by me for the sake of this argument.
Of course.
Stats, and the Bengals are just as much of a threat. I mean, Kansas City right now in 2022 has played like a better football team. But man-to-man in Cincinnati, I just think this has the makings of one of the more fun games of the season. Much watch TV. And my big question is, what are they going to do against the elite of the elite? With some of those rankings, they've beaten up on some bad teams, and they've kind of just been okay against some of the better teams. So, this is going to be an awesome test. And like I said, not a must win, but a put the league on notice kind of game. If they can beat Kansas City at home to get to 8-4, then the league's on blast, the division's on blast, and I can't imagine the elation, the exuberance the streets of Cincinnati will have on Sunday night. I would like to be a bartender.
Oh yeah, if they win, the expectations for and just the national narrative, they're going to be one. They're Kansas City's still going to be 1A. They're going to be 1B out of the AFC. They still have the Ravens. They still have the Dolphins. The Bengals beat the Dolphins. They still have the Bills above them as Super Bowl contenders. If they pull this game out, never mind that the Bengals already made the Super Bowl last year and have a better team. In the national media's eyes, they're going to be legitimately looked at as like, no, this team is for real. Last year wasn't a fluke. This team is legitimate and they are for real.
Well, one of the big question mark people had was once Cheeto went down, they said, what is this team ceiling without Cheeto Uzie, without their best, definitely their best defensive back, one of the best defensive backs in the entire league.
Sure.
And I think we're going to find out. We're going to get an answer to that question, a definitive answer this week. I don't think we've had that completely answered. They look good. The defense has looked incredible. We talked about it at length, but this is the best passing offense that I think they will have. I think that they will have faced this season. So if they can hold up and pull this one out and even just look decent against a Patrick Mahomes-led offense, then it's going to be there's going to be a lot of smiles on faces when people wake up on Monday morning.
Well, and they don't even have
some serious hangovers that might lead to some.
I expect a lot of hangovers one way or the other, and they don't even have to hold up. You just can't be a sieve. The Bengals have the better defense between the two teams, and both offenses are awesome. The Bengals have actually become a more efficient, and last year was all explosive play. They were sack, run for 2 yards, and then a 20-yard, or 40-yard, pull play out of your ass thing. This year, their explosive plays, they're middle of the pack for the amount of explosive plays. They just keep marching the ball up and down the field on these teams, and they're getting the explosive playmaker back this week. So Bengals offense, I think, can match up point for point with the Chiefs, and the Bengals have the better defense between the two teams. So it's the Bengals defense doesn't have to play lights out, but again, we're going back to how they were going to, how the Bengals are playing after, with missing Cheeto. This is when you see the worth again of Lou Anarumo. This is when you realize how good of just a schemer he is, the game plans that he comes out with. when you have Eli Apple, who's been a cast off, and you've got a rookie second rounder in Cam Taylor-Britt, Mike Hilton, who was forgotten. I mean, the Steelers didn't offer him a contract before 2020 or 2021 season. You know, I mean, you're seeing just how good a team defense is when it's 11 players instead of just one playmaking stud.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I can't wait to watch it. One thing I'll say about Kansas City though is that they've been consistent. They've looked good all season long. And anybody who listens to this show regularly, if you're one of the 7 people who do, you know that this Bengals team has not been very consistent. They've been super up and down. They had a lot of growing pains, a lot of figuring out to do, a lot of injuries, but they seem to be rounding into shape at the right time. So let's jump into some predictions, Joe. How do you see this going?
After just going in about how the Bengals can match up point for point with them, and the Bengals have the better defense, I'm actually picking for the first time. This is game 12. Ooh. I am picking the Bengals to lose. I'm picking Kansas City to win 31-27. It's going to be a close game. The Bengals defense is playing, like I said, better than KC, but this is the week I think the depth on the cornerback is going to be exposed a little bit. They aren't going to be able to get that just shut down, the shutdown drive to where they're going to keep them out of the end zone. Again, it's going to be a one possession game, but I've got KC coming ahead 31-27.
Yeah, that's probably a more likely scenario than the one I'm going to wish cast in your general direction. I don't think anybody will always be upset if they lose, but to lose by less than a score, there's no such thing as moral victories, but I think they'll still be on blast and they'll still get a lot of credit if that result happens. But I'm going with a Cincinnati victory, 28-27 on a 67-yard walk-off by Evan McPherson. Just kidding. Probably not 67 yards. But I'm getting specific. A walk-off win on the leg of Money Mac. I think Kansas City is going to put up some points early. Bengals will make it closer at the half with the late score, and then they'll just pedal to the metal in the second half. Kind of a similar game script to what we've seen them do against Kansas City in the past. And we all go to the Holy Grail, chug a couple beers, maybe rip a couple shots, bourbon unless you're the kind that makes you violent. Then we'll get you tequila, some Fireball if you have school tomorrow, and we'll go home happy. That's what I got, Joe.
I'm happy if that's how it happens. I mean, I can't be the complete homer and pick them to win all 17 games. This is the one game to where, it's at least reasonable for me to say, hey, maybe they're not going to win this one. So,
yeah, I think we look back at this podcast. Anybody wants to call us out and say, you treated Cincinnati unfairly, picking them to go 16-1 and only lose to the Chiefs. Pretty good. All right. So, Joe, you got any parting words of wisdom for us?
Yes. Deion Sanders, come to the Bearcats. Having prime time coaching my Bearcats, Clifton style, the state of Cincinnati, that would be fucking epic.
Can you imagine in like 1995 thinking that you would ever say the words, hey, Deion, come coach my Bearcats?
Who would ever think he'd be coaching a FCS Jackson State? I mean, he's a damn good coach, and he's coming for a bigger job. So UC's open up the checkbook, deal with the big personality, Neville Pinto.
Let's run it back, man. Maybe we can walk across the way, throw on a baseball jersey. The rest could use another leadoff man once again. Could patrol the outfield. I'm sure he comes
unavailable.
I'm sure he comes cheap.
I mean, Bearcats are probably going to have to pay him $5-6 million a year, but they can afford it.
Yeah, so the Reds wouldn't have to pay him that much more. He's already getting 5 or 6. So I like it. This is the plan. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening and supporting this nonsense known as the Riverfront Bengals Show. Please do remember to subscribe either on YouTube or like us in your favorite podcast, follow, download, whatever it's called. I don't know. But you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We are at Riverfront Cincy and at TR Bengals Show on all of those platforms. For Joe Farsing, I'm Nate Dotson. Take it easy, y'all.